Here is a quick Sega Outrun update. This is the one that's in the basement. And what's happened with this recently is that I have gone ahead and I've done the high score save mod, which adds free play with attract mode. It also has the song playing when you're choosing the radio station when you start a game, and it saves high scores. One of the other things that I also did was add the super capacitor for the high score save. And basically what that allows to happen is instead of saving the high score for about a week or two, it actually keeps the high score saved for a few months at a time, provided that the game is actually turned on. Now, one of the things that was bothering me with this game was that the steering on this just wasn't quite perfect. What bothered me was that the tension when you turn to one side was greater than when you turn to the other side. So I took care of that, and one of the things I also did was replace some of the gears that were inside. Actually replaced all of them with 3D printed gears. Now, they're not the best quality. The material isn't perfect, but I wanted to show you how that came out. But before we take a look at what's inside the steering mechanism, let's go ahead and look at the old gears so we know what is common to crack, and we'll go from there. Here are the 4 original gears that were in the steering mechanism. If we go from left to right, this furthest gear on the left, this is the one that's actually tied to the potentiometer itself. And this second gear is the one that turns this gear on the potentiometer. This third gear here, this is the one that's on the actual steering shaft. And this gear here turns the shaft that also includes this gear. When the steering shaft turns, it turns this gear here. Further down the line is this gear. When it turns the gear that's on the potentiometer itself. Now, what I've seen out of all the Sega Outrun machines I've had, you know, the other 2 in the garage, is that this gear is the one that's most likely going to crack. They often crack right by the set screws. If we take a look at this one here, it's cracked along the set screw on both sides, and that's common. This gear is actually not too bad. I'm going to save this gear, and I'm going to hold it onto it just in case the 3D printed gears I put on don't work so well, because it's not falling apart. It does have a crack on it, and it worked. Now, I do think that this gear had been replaced at one point in time, just based on the cleanliness of it. I mean, if I flip this gear over, it's filthy, as along with those other 2 there. So anyway, I'll go ahead and I'm going to show you guys what the 3D printed gears look like. There are some pros and cons to those 3D printed gears. I didn't use the strongest plastic to print them when I printed them off at work, but they work, and the only thing left to do is just kind of see how they hold up. I mean, it's going to be home use only. It's not on location, so hopefully they hold up for a long time, but I don't know, I'll mark the date. This is July of 2016, and if they do break or crack, I'll let you guys know. So we'll go from there. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 3D printed gears that are actually in the steering mechanism right now. Here's the steering mechanism for the Sega Outrun. If you ever need to get down to the inside of the control panel, it's really easy to open up. You've got 3 bolts, 2 over here, and then there's another one over here by the shifter. Usually they're security bolts, which means that they've got the, they're like a Torx bit with a pin in the middle. I've changed these over to Allen bolts because it's home use only and it's much easier to access. But basically, you undo those 3 bolts and the whole steering mechanism tilts down. So I'm going to go ahead and undo those 3 bolts right now, and we'll go ahead and drop it down and see what it looks like. So there's the inside. Let's go ahead and take a look. So you can already see those bright yellow gears. So let's drop down and take a look. Here are the 3D printed gears inside the steering mechanism. If we start at the top and kind of work our way towards the steering wheel, up here we've got the bumper, and this is when you turn this, When that reaches all the way over, it hits that. Now, one of the things I've seen happen over time is that this metal stop here ends up hitting this and destroying it, and this metal bracket breaks and ends up hitting the metal. So just one thing to take a look out for. The next gear we have over, this is the gear that is in direct contact with the potentiometer gear, which is that one in the back. Now, yes, I know my potentiometer is missing the casing on the top, but you can see that basically all that happens is you've got a gear is that potentiometer turns, and you can kind of see the little wiper arm down in there that turns. It's that little tiny thing right in there. Now, when this gear turns, it's being turned, further down the shaft by this gear here. This gear is in direct contact with the one on the steering mechanism. So when the steering wheel turns, that's what is, making everything happen. This is the gear that's most likely going to crack from what I've seen on a few other steering mechanisms. They crack right on the set screws, and that's what goes in there. I think I've seen one gear that's had this one cracked. The gears that I had actually had, this gear had a hairline crack in it as well. So, I mean, they're all prone to cracking, but this is where you're going to see the most damage done. And what happens is they crack, you lose a couple teeth, and then it starts to feel sloppy. One of the other things that can make it feel sloppy is that the metal springs here break, or they become bent, or one becomes longer than the other. And there's two. There's one on the right side, and there is one just down here behind this gear as well that is on the left side. You can actually pick up springs like this at the hardware store. I think they cost me $1.39 a piece, and I did have to cut it to length, but once I did that, it worked really well. So these are the 3D printed gears. Now, they're not perfect, but they work, and I'm not going to change them out for reproduction gears until I've kind of run them through their course. Now, this is home use only. It's July of 2016, and I'll see how long it lasts. I'll take a look at the counter on the test mode and see how many plays I get out of them. They're not solid. They are also not hollow. They have a support structure on the inside, so they do feel good, but they're also a lot lighter, and this isn't the strongest plastic either. So I am curious to see how they hold up. A couple other things I noticed is, since I didn't create these 3D files, but the holes for the set screws were a little on the small side a couple of times, which is good because that allows you to actually drive the set screw in. But when you're driving that set screw in, what happens is it actually causes you to create the threads at that very time. So this screw here, this set screw here, went in crooked the first time. And I didn't realize it was going in crooked until it poked out. It was poking out in the wrong place. What happened is it didn't go in straight through here. It actually kind of went in diagonally. But because it's not solid, it just drove itself right through all the plastic walls that were there. And I was like, oh, crap. So I backed it out and redid it so that it lined itself up. Now, I'll be curious to see how long this holds up. It might not hold up that well. We'll see. But hey, it's an experiment, and I'll report back to you guys as soon as I know what's going on. So other than that, I mean, all the gears did slide onto the shafts. Everything was fine. This fit really well. The two gears that kind of had a hard time getting on were the smaller gears. So this gear was a little bit of a pain in the neck to get on, as well as the one for the potentiometer was a little bit difficult to get on, but they went on. It's plastic, so things do move. This one went on fine, and actually I think maybe it felt a little bit looser than it should. Now, these were printed on a MakerBot, so I don't, and the resolution wasn't set super high. Everything was on the default setting. But hey, they're working and the steering feels good now. So what I'll do is I'll report back to you in time to let you know how everything is going. So I just wanted to share with you guys, hey, this is what the 3D printed gears look like. These are all the gears. It's not perfect, but it's going to work. The next thing I need to do with this is just throw some lubricant on the gears and hopefully get some extra life out of them. And we'll go from there. And I saved all the old gears, so if they do break, I can at least get a gear in so that the game isn't down for too long of a time. But there you go. That's the inside of it. I'm not going to do a video on how to take this apart. There's a guy out there who actually did a really good video of disassembling it, and he would do it 10 times faster than I'll ever take this thing apart. So there you go. That is the steering mechanism with 3D printed gears for a Sega Outrun. And hey, they work. And to the gentleman who sent me those files, you know who you are. Thank you very much. They're working out so good so far. So we'll keep an eye on them and see how they go. And I think the only thing I would probably change is I will print these to be solid, and I'll use a stronger plastic. I'm using the bottom end of 3D printing plastic material. All right, guys, thanks a lot, and take it easy.